Well, still in Rivers State, would the intervention by the National Assembly change the narrative? We have in the studio a legal practitioner, Barrister Omomo, who would be giving us a broader perspective of this whole Rivers issue. Thank you for joining us, Barrister.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
We seem to have new twists in Rivers State on a daily basis. So what do you make of this whole situation?
You know, like in my local parlance, we often say that in Yanginana Gambio, we translate that river lacks no dates. So River State is just like a stream that lacks no dates. So every day, I think for the past 28 years, River State has been River State.
So now the House of Representatives actually set up a committee to monitor the activities of the sole administrator. Do you think this will change the narrative?
Well, it depends on because when you say to change the narrative, it's subjective. But I don't know which of the narrative that you feel that should change.
No, there are many people that believe that the sole administrator, they wouldn't have declared a state of emergency. There have been protests on the activities of the sole administrator. Could it change such opinion of some sort?
Well, in the first place, you know, protest is a legitimate action. It's allowed. Anyone is free to take on any protest insofar as your protest do not affect or infringe on the right and freedom of movement of other people and their businesses. So it is legitimate for one to embark on several protests. Remember, there's always this protest, counter-protest in Nigeria. We're used to that. But the major issue we should actually face is that maybe you could say the state of emergency was it very necessary? And if it was necessary in the circumstance that it has come to say, does it enjoy any legitimacy? And if it does enjoy any sense of legitimacy, what are the modus which a situation such as that in law needs to actually be processed? So those are actually where Nigerians should be.
So was it really necessary for you?
Well, if you look at the undercurrent of why the president said he declared the state of emergency as when he did, was necessary. Why I say is that the apex courts, in their wisdom, while adjudicating as the final hem of a judicial system over the issue and the fracas in Rivers State, came up with a ratio, a decision that stated that in the circumstances as it were, that there was no government, no governance in Rivers State. Once that is stated in law, it means that there was a vacuum. And you know, in governance, in administration, nature itself abhors vacuum. So at that point, when I heard that decision by the Supreme Court, I was even worried myself. I even anticipated that Tinubu could be advised to actually take that smart one on the Rivers State situation. But the fact remains that in law, when the apex court have pronounced that, irrespective of the fact that they have now given the governor a kind of an olive leave to go back
and represent you,
do what you're supposed to do, revisit the budget, present it to where the law that are actually bringing in as a governor expect that you shouldn't put other things together. I think if you were smart enough, maybe if you really have people that could really understand the purport of that Supreme Court decision, the ratio that speak about that non-government existence and other things, would have been smarter enough to actually go there and now fix that. Because there could have only been a government if the legislative were working, the executive were functioning, and the executive were actually doing things in line with what the law and the constitution has provided. So failure which he did not actually do what the law expects of executive to do, there was no governance and there was no government. So I intend to agree with the Supreme Court that in that circumstance, there was no government, there was no governance. So when there's no governance, where the legislative is not working, the executive is not actually living up to the law, what do you expect? The vacuum exists. So to me, in law, that was necessary at that time. Now let me add this. Irrespective of the fact that people believe the situation did not degenerate to a point at which the provision of the constitution expected that should have been done. But they forgot that this was necessitated based on the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. In many other instances that people will cite and say in Plateau, in Borno, and many other instances there was degeneration too, but maybe insecurity and maybe other panacea indices were there. But in Rivers State, even in Amechi's time, there was a worse scenario than that. But there was never a time the court at the apex and now declare that for that very particular state, there's no government and there's no governor. So for me, that ratio, that decision of the Supreme Court was what actually give the president impetus to do that. So for me, in law, it was necessary. Now, the issue of legitimacy. If we now feel and believe that the action of the president was unconstitutional, as many people are now proposing, was there anything that happened after that that actually make what we take illegitimacy to be legitimized? Now the truth remains. After such was declared, there were a lot of things being said, there were a lot of argument of proposition about the action of the president as being unconstitutional. He took a step forward. He did what the law expected him to do in the circumstance. The National Assembly is the parliament. In the circumstance as it were, the issue of that state of emergency declaration was put to the National Assembly. And in all honesty and sincerity, based on the principle of law, the parliament did what they expected to do in law. They did. They sat, they deliberated, and overwhelmingly, they agreed that such. So for me, that act of parliament, the
legitimizes the action
legitimacy
of the
to what actually happened, assuming but not considering that what the president did was not legitimate.
What about the decisions
let's
of
bring
the
it to
sole administrator
today? Now, the House of Representatives has invited Ibok-Ete Ibas. Do you think it's actually a move that has given hope to those who feel that the emergency room will be called off anytime soon?
Let's start it from we need to actually...
Because that is what the people want. Most of the people in Rivers State, that is what they want.
You see, this is just a matter of subjective opinion.
Okay.
Let me be frank to all Nigerians that may be listening to this very program. Any place, any state, any citizen of a nation, all what they need is for the government to work, to function, that they should provide so many things for them. That's what the common Nigerian needs. The common Nigerian is not interested who is the governor, who is the president, insofar as you can give them electricity, water, healthcare, basic education, and the enabling environment where peace strive, where they can do their normal mechanic, carpentry, hairstyling, and other things. They'll strive. Nigerians are very hard-working people. They don't care who is the president. In Rivers State, in the circumstance that Rivers State were, as it were before the declaration, could you really see that there was that enabling environment thriving in Rivers State, which people were so much happy with the things? Now compare that to now. Ibok-Ete is here, the sole administrator, irrespective of how you look at it. There's relative peace in Rivers State. I've been in Port Harcourt like last week. There's relative peace.
There have been protesting.
Yes.
There have been some pockets of protest here and there.
I'm happy you're calling pocket of protest. In Nigeria, there have always been pocket of protest. If you find out that they will pro-protest and they be counter-protest. All those things are organizing, we know what's happening. But what I'm saying relatively that if the function of the sole administrator is to make for the enabling environment, for peace, and the functioning of the agencies and social services, I think that's what Rivers State needs.
And you think that is not occasioned by the fact that there were reports or rumors that after he was made the sole administrator, there were tankers of armored cars and everything that was coming in to crush or to crush any form of opposition that will arise? You think that is not what is bringing this relative peace, in quotes, you talk about?
Well, let's just face this. You know, times when things happen in the Niger Delta, it seems as if we are living in a different climate. If you know what's happening in Northeast, we are talking of tankers, armored vehicles. I've had a stage of staying in Banawa, I've stayed in Katsina, I've stayed in some part of the northern state. Let me tell you this. If you really know Northeast, so many things that is happening. We are not seeing armors, we are not seeing militant hardwares. The bandits, the Boko Haram, have superior ammunition that when they roll in... We
don't want to see them here.
These are people that have the capacity of taking a whole state, local government, that people have been paying tax and rent for many years. So, most of those things you are saying that they were armor being moved in Rivers State, most of them are speculative, my sister. They're not true.
Okay.
They're not true.
So what do you make of this invitation? Let's get your opinion.
Okay. The fact now is that when you have in law, when one state of emergency is declared in the state, the sole administrator is appointed as in the circumstance with Rivers State. It's not a strange thing because the sole administrator have to be supervised by the National Assembly. That is fact. These are just elementary facts. Unlike when you have a governor, it's the House of Assembly that will act the check and balances and now supervise it. So it's a normal routine that once you have a sole administrator in a state, he has to, the oversight function to supervise and see what he's doing is the National Assembly. So from time to time, the National Assembly will invite him, he will appear before them, and let's give report from time to time what is happening.
Okay.
So it's a normal thing. So the National Assembly vested with that duty and function of calling Ibok-Ete Ibas from time to time to come in, either present certain thing, explain certain thing, and now they let's Nigeria not forget this. You know, people just believe that it is that declaration of state of emergency that Tinubu did that Ibok-Ete is now subsisting. It's not true.
Okay.
When the National Assembly started over the emergency rule, they make some reviews. They amended so many things. And people do not even care to go and look at the latest version of that emergency rule. Will Ibok-Ete still be there for 6 months or a lesser period was reviewed? Does Ibok-Ete have some capacity to appoint local government chairman? All those are things that the National Assembly, when they now... So it's actually the proclamation of emergency rule as occasioned by the overwhelming support of National Assembly that is actually different, not what anybody.
Okay.
So occasionally, maybe it could even be on monthly basis, Ibok-Ete will be summoned by the National Assembly, which now they want to supervise him, is to report to them. If you have so many things that you believe that, just like what I've gone to the House of Assembly in Rivers State, so it is actually a National Assembly that has that power. So it's nothing so. So Rivers State should not say this relative peace because he has been. No, it's a normal thing in emergency.
So let's wrap with this. Do you see Fubara returning to office?
Well, this is the fact. Fubara was an elected governor by the Rivers State people, by overwhelming vote of the Rivers State people. Emergency rules, so to speak, do not be a kind of an indefinite situation. When the National Assembly review the role of the sole administrator and the situation in Rivers State, and maybe at the point that satisfied with the fact that so many things are there, I think an elected governor maybe. That's not the first time that an elected governor through emergency rule was removed, or maybe through some other process were removed and then they came back. But the fact remains that for Fubara as a governor to come back to Rivers State, I believe he must have actually by now had a superior reasoning to really know that it is actually for a governor to function, he needs to accept that there should be the legislature too must function, the executive must function, and the judiciary must function. It's not about me and who I feel I am, but knowing that in democracy, all the arms of government must function. If it comes in and that still repeats itself, there will still be need for a state of emergency.
All right, Barrister, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to bringing you some other time.
It's a pleasure.
We appreciate you, sir.